She sat there in court, calm, polished, and eerily confident, like she had it all figured out. Like this was just a bad dream she'd soon wake up from. But she had no idea what was about to hit her, because when the video played, everything changed. The silence in the courtroom was instant. What once looked like a tragic accident suddenly felt like a horror film in real life. Two young men, gone. No second chances, no do-overs, just one brutal impact, and the truth laid bare on the screen for everyone to see. And yet, she didn't flinch. She cried, sure, played the victim, but the evidence told another story, one she couldn't talk her way out of. This is the chilling case of Mackenzie Shirilla, a teenager who went from high school dances and TikToks to facing life behind bars. But was it murder or a moment of reckless heartbreak? As we uncover each twist in this unbelievable case, you'll see why some call her a monster and others see a broken girl lost in rage. Stay with us, because the story you're about to hear, it only gets darker from here. Section 1. The perfect teenage life. At first glance, she looked like any other teenager. Mackenzie Shirilla, 17 years old, was the girl next door type, always smiling in selfies, following TikTok trends, and cruising through the quiet suburbs of Strongsville, Ohio. Her social media told a story of a bubbly, confident high school senior. She posted dance videos, shared outfits, and flashed peace signs like everything in her life was picture perfect. In a town where nothing big ever happened, she blended in, completely ordinary. But what no one saw behind the filters and polished captions was a very different story. Because behind closed doors, Mackenzie was in a stormy relationship with 20-year-old Dominic Russo. He was older, street smart, charismatic, and always surrounded by friends. Mackenzie was drawn to him, maybe for his confidence, maybe for the chaos. Either way, the two were inseparable. But their connection? It wasn't romantic, it was volatile. Friends would later describe their relationship as toxic, obsessive, and emotionally unstable. The fights were frequent, the drama was exhausting. There were tears, threats, and rumors of violence. Still, they stayed together, locked in a cycle of breakups and makeups, each time more intense than the last. And then came the warnings. Quiet conversations among friends, subtle red flags on social media. Mackenzie had allegedly said it out loud more than once, "If this doesn't stop, I'll crash the car." No one believed her. They assumed it was emotional outbursts, teenage theatrics, a cry for attention, not a plan. But something shifted in the final weeks of July. Mackenzie became more withdrawn. Her messages grew darker. Her behavior started to feel off. People noticed, but no one acted. No one imagined that the girl who smiled for TikToks could be capable of anything truly dangerous. Until one morning, everything shattered. Because beneath the gloss of her digital life, beneath the smiles, the dances, and the captions, Mackenzie Shirilla wasn't just spiraling. She was preparing. And what she was about to do would change lives forever. Section 2. A toxic love story. To understand what happened that night, you have to understand the relationship. Mackenzie Shirilla and Dominic Russo weren't just another teenage couple. Their bond ran deep, but so did the dysfunction. It wasn't just fights or jealousy. Friends say it was explosive, dramatic, and at times dangerous. Dominic was 20, street smart, confident, the kind of guy everyone seemed to know. Mackenzie, just 17, was drawn to him. Maybe it was the intensity. Maybe it was the way he made her feel like the center of his world. Whatever it was, the two were inseparable, even when they were tearing each other apart. Their fights were public, loud, ugly. And it wasn't just words. Friends recalled seeing bruises, broken things, cruel messages exchanged late at night. But every time things reached a boiling point, they got back together, again and again and again. Some called it toxic, others called it young love gone wrong. But Mackenzie's behavior in those final weeks sent a chill through the people closest to her. One former friend came forward with a horrifying claim. Mackenzie had said she would crash the car with Dominic in it just to make a point, just to end the cycle. No one believed she was serious. They should have, because on July 31st, 2022, around 5:30 in the morning, Mackenzie Shirilla got behind the wheel of her silver Toyota Camry. In the passenger seat, Dominic Russo. In the back seat, 19-year-old Devon Flanagan, a friend who just happened to be tagging along that night. None of them knew it would be their last drive. The streets were empty. The neighborhood was asleep. Mackenzie drove slowly at first down an industrial stretch of Strongsville, far from any homes or traffic. Then she turned around and floored it. The car accelerated to 100 miles per hour. No brakes, no hesitation, just a straight shot into the brick wall of an abandoned warehouse. The crash was so violent, first responders described the car as folded like paper. Dominic and Devon died instantly. Mackenzie survived, and that's where the story truly begins to unravel, because what looked like a tragic accident was about to be exposed as something far more deliberate.
Section 3. The Deadly Morning. It started like any other early morning, quiet, still, and dark. But in the shadows of that July dawn, something was brewing. Surveillance footage would later show Mackenzie's silver Toyota Camry creeping along Alamito Drive, an empty industrial street most people in Strongsville had never even driven down. No houses, no lights, just silence. She circled back, and then it happened. She slammed her foot on the gas. The Camry rocketed forward, reaching 100 miles per hour in a matter of seconds. The direction? Dead straight toward a brick house warehouse wall. There were no skid marks, no last-minute swerve, no sign that anyone inside that car even tried to stop it. The moment of impact was devastating. The vehicle crumpled like a tin can. Glass exploded, metal twisted. It was more than a crash, it was destruction. Emergency crews were on the scene within minutes. What they found was chaos. Two young men, Dominic Russo, just 20, and Devon Flanagan, 19, were already gone. Their bodies were mangled beyond recognition. There was nothing anyone could do. Mackenzie, somehow, survived. She was hurt, but awake, breathing, alert. And that was the moment investigators started to ask questions. Because something didn't make sense. Why was there no attempt to brake? Why was she driving 100 miles per hour on a deserted industrial road at 5 in the morning? Why were they even there in the first place? At first, it was treated like a tragic teen accident, a horrible lapse in judgment. Maybe she panicked, maybe she lost control. But as police started digging, they uncovered a chilling pattern. First, they pulled data from the car's event recorder, the black box that stores every move made behind the wheel. What it revealed was shocking. Mackenzie had floored the gas pedal to the max and never once touched the brake. And this wasn't just a wild joyride. This was deliberate. Then came the footage. Days before the crash, Mackenzie had been caught on camera driving the exact same route, slowly, almost like she was rehearsing. Investigators called it a test run. That's when everything shifted. This wasn't a fluke. It wasn't panic. It wasn't confusion. It was a setup. Someone had planned this. And the more they investigated, the more it looked like that someone was Mackenzie Shirilla.
Section 4. The evidence unfolds. If the crash raised questions, the evidence answered them, and not in the way anyone expected. It started with the black box data, confirming everyone's worst suspicion. Mackenzie never touched the brakes. From the moment she floored the gas pedal to the second the car smashed into the wall, it was full speed ahead. There was no panic, no hesitation, just cold, mechanical acceleration. But that was just the beginning. Investigators dug deeper into her phone, her text, her social media, and what they found painted a disturbing picture of a girl unraveling. Text messages revealed frequent, heated arguments between Mackenzie and Dominic. Friends came forward to say the relationship had turned obsessive, even violent. Witnesses said Mackenzie would often scream at him in public, threaten him in private, and at times threaten herself. One friend even claimed she said the words out loud, "I'll crash the car if this doesn't stop." At the time, it sounded like drama, but now it sounded like a warning. Then came the most chilling discovery: surveillance footage taken days before the crash. Same car, same road, same exact turn onto Alameda Drive. She wasn't lost, she wasn't driving aimlessly, she knew where she was going. And that drive, it looked more and more like a rehearsal. Prosecutors were stunned. Everything was falling into place. The location wasn't random. The speed wasn't an accident. The victims weren't strangers. And most importantly, Mackenzie had a motive. Dominic and Mackenzie had been fighting again. Witnesses said things were worse than ever. Some even said Dominic was trying to leave her. Others claim she couldn't handle the idea of him moving on. But Devon, he was just along for the ride. 19 years old, a friend caught in the middle. He wasn't part of the argument. He wasn't a threat. He was just in the back seat when Mackenzie made her decision. And that's what made it even more devastating. Because if this really was intentional, then 2 people died that day, and only one of them was ever supposed to. And just like that, the question shifted. This wasn't about reckless driving anymore. It was about intent. And what prosecutors were about to present in court would flip the case on its head and turn a crying teenager into something far more terrifying. Section 5. The Courtroom Bombshell. The courtroom was packed. Cameras rolling, reporters scribbling, and at the center of it all sat Mackenzie Shirilla, stone-faced, dressed neatly, like this was just another hearing. She didn't testify. She didn't need to, because what came next spoke louder than any words she could have said. First, prosecutors walked the court through the black box data, showing how Mackenzie pressed the gas pedal down 100% and never once braked, not for a second. Then came the texts, dozens of them, threats, fights, obsessions, all pointing to a teen who wasn't just emotional, she was spiraling. And then, the videos. The courtroom went dead silent. The first video showed Mackenzie calmly driving down Alameda Drive days before the crash, taking the exact same route. Prosecutors called it a trial run, an eerie preview of what was coming. The second video? It was the crash itself. The footage captured the Camry as it sped into the frame, then vanished into a brick wall at 100 miles per hour. There were no signs of distress, no last-minute swerve, no attempt to turn away, just a straight line, full throttle, into the end. As the final frame froze, all eyes turned to Mackenzie. She didn't cry, not at first, but you could see it. The moment it hit her, the calm cracked, the confidence vanished. Her hands began to shake, tears welled up, and just like that, the girl who once thought she had walked free knew she wasn't walking out of this courtroom. Not today, not ever. Her defense team tried everything. They claimed it was a tragic accident, a case of reckless driving gone wrong. They said Mackenzie suffered from memory loss, brain trauma, and couldn't recall what happened that night. They even suggested maybe Dominic grabbed the wheel. Maybe Mackenzie panicked. Maybe she was trying to avoid something on the road. But it didn't hold up, because the evidence didn't lie, and the judge wasn't buying it. This wasn't a jury trial, just one woman, Judge Nancy Margaret Russo, tasked with deciding Mackenzie's fate. And her verdict came down like a hammer. This was not reckless driving. This was murder.
She ruled that Mackenzie acted deliberately, with purpose and intent, that she accelerated with a mission to end the lives of Dominic Russo and Devon Flanagan. No reasonable fact-finder could come to any other conclusion. The courtroom held its breath as the judge read the charges. Guilty on all counts. Murder, aggravated assault, endangering a minor. Then came the sentence, 15 years to life in prison. And that's when Mackenzie broke, truly broke. Gone was the cold stare. Gone was the calm exterior. She sobbed uncontrollably, gasping for air, clutching her hands to her chest as if trying to hold on to whatever piece of herself she had left. But there was no turning back now. The girl who once smiled in selfies and danced on TikTok was now a convicted murderer, and the world was watching.
Section 6. Verdict and Reaction. As the final words of the sentence echoed through the courtroom, everything changed. Mackenzie Shirilla, once composed and confident, crumbled. Her shoulders shook, her face twisted with disbelief. She wasn't just crying, she was falling apart. The moment she realized this wasn't a bad dream, she wasn't going home. Not today, not ever. Her tears came in waves, loud, raw, and uncontrollable. The same teenager who once stared at the judge without blinking now looked like a scared girl clinging to whatever was left of her world. But for the families of the victims, this wasn't relief. It was devastation. Dominic Russo's mother, the same woman who once welcomed Mackenzie into her home, stood broken. She was part of our family, she said through tears. We loved her, and she's the reason my son is gone. Devon Flanagan's family was shattered too. Devon wasn't involved in the fight. He wasn't part of the relationship drama. He was just a friend who got in the wrong car at the worst possible time. He had a future. He had dreams. And now, he's just gone. The public's reaction was just as split. Some saw Mackenzie as a monster, a manipulative teen who used her tears as a shield, who turned a car into a weapon and played the victim after the fact. Others saw her as broken, an emotional girl caught in a toxic relationship who lost control and made a choice she could never undo. Social media exploded. Debates raged. Was this cold-blooded murder or a tragic mistake from a girl too young to grasp the consequences? But in the eyes of the court, the evidence was clear. There was no mechanical failure, no medical emergency, no attempt to stop. There was intent, there was motive, and there was a devastating outcome. 2 young men dead, 3 families shattered, 1 teenager behind bars. It didn't matter how many TikToks she made. It didn't matter how many tears she cried, because the car told the story. The black box told the truth, and the verdict told the world what happened on July 31st wasn't an accident. It was a decision, and decisions have consequences. Section 7. The Bigger Question. As the courtroom emptied and the headlines faded, one question still lingered, one that no judge, jury, or piece of evidence could fully answer. Did Mackenzie Shirilla truly mean to kill them? Was she a calculating killer, mapping out a route, planning an impact, rehearsing it days in advance? Or was she a heartbroken teenager, drowning in a toxic relationship who made a reckless, irreversible decision in the heat of emotion? The truth may never be fully known, but what we do know is this. In the weeks leading up to the crash, Mackenzie was spiraling. Her friends saw the signs. Her text messages screamed desperation. She had threatened to crash the car. She had driven the exact route before. And on that morning, she pressed the gas, hard, without hesitation. Still, others point to her age, 17, a high school senior, a girl who had barely started living. They ask, should a teenager's worst decision define the rest of her life? Should emotion, heartbreak, and instability count the same as malice? It's a painful, uncomfortable debate, but it's one the world has wrestled with since the crash. To some, Mackenzie is a symbol of everything wrong with modern teen culture: self-obsessed, impulsive, and incapable of owning her mistakes. To others, she's a warning, a reminder of how fragile the line is between pain and destruction, between losing control and losing lives. But no matter where you stand, one truth remains. 2 lives were lost. 2 mothers buried their sons. And one teenager, for better or worse, now sits behind bars with a future she'll never fully live out. In the end, justice may have been served, but the cost was unbearable. Families shattered, futures erased, a community scarred, and a haunting question that still divides everyone who hears this story. Was this murder or a moment of madness?
Conclusion: justice served, but no winners. When the dust settled, the headlines called it justice, a guilty verdict, a long sentence, a community left reeling, but no one really won. Dominic Russo and Devon Flanagan, 2 young men with futures ahead of them, are gone forever. No court ruling can bring them back. No apology can undo what happened that morning. Mackenzie Shirilla, once just a teenager navigating school and social media, now faces decades in a prison cell, reliving one moment that changed everything. One decision, one choice, 1 second that unraveled countless lives. It wasn't just speeding, it wasn't just an argument, it was a fatal decision. And whether you see Mackenzie as a villain or a victim, one thing is clear: this case is a tragic reminder of how fast everything can fall apart, how unchecked emotions, toxic relationships, and impulsive decisions can turn deadly in an instant. So, before the final word, we want to hear from you. Before we end this video, drop a comment below. Do you think Mackenzie planned this, or was it just a terrible mistake? What's your take? We'll be reading your responses, and we may even address your thoughts in a future video. Because this story doesn't end here. Not for the families, not for Mackenzie, and not for anyone still asking, how did it get this far? If this video gave you a new perspective or left you with more questions than answers, check out the next video on your screen. It goes even deeper into stories like this one. We'll see you there.